And after Speaker Nancy Pelosi caused international chaos with her trip to Taiwan, another unannounced visit has fueled China's rage. A group of lawmakers led by Democrat Senator Ed Markey just wrapped up a Taiwan visit of their own. China outwardly condemning this latest trip, calling it an intrusion of their sovereignty and territorial integrity. The condemnation followed with an eye-opening move as China is now sending troops to Russia to engage in joint military drills, strengthening one of the world's most concerning alliances and drawing the readiness of the United States military into focus. We're going to discuss this further. I will be joined by former Associate Political Director with the Reagan White House and columnist for The American Spectator, Jeffrey Lord, and Publicist and Media Relations Director for Proactive Communications, TPUSA Ambassador Jillian Anderson. Thanks to both of you for waking up bright and early with us this Sunday morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. All right. So an intense topic here. China and Russia continuing to threaten global security, not just individually, but now together. Russia, of course, already at war with the Ukraine. China seems to be inching closer to an invasion or at least more intimidation tactics with Taiwan. Now, of course, these are two of the world's most hostile nations. Jeffrey, could they be stopped if they paired up? And again, there are other countries joining them as well, but of course, China and Russia, the two we're most concerned about.
Well, I think it would be concerning, to say the least. You know, this reminds me in world history of the alliance in the 1930s between Adolf Hitler's Germany and Benito Mussolini's Italy. They banded together. Mussolini invaded Abyssinia, or what we now call Ethiopia. And Hitler, of course, was soon on the march himself. And together, they were pretty strong and caused the world untold amounts of grief. So I do think when you have bad actors like that, or people who are acting very strangely, you want to be extraordinarily careful. President Reagan used to talk about peace through strength. That is certainly what is in order here, and there has to be, real readiness with the U.S. military to be on alert for this kind of thing.
Yeah, Jillian, do you think that this is potentially a new evil axis, joint power? And also, is this a reaction to what many are saying is a United States that people are no longer afraid of, that we are weak on the world stage?
I mean, absolutely, we're weaker on the world stage. We've seen mistake after mistake since Joe Biden's been in office. I mean, we're here celebrating about next week, a year from withdrawal of Afghanistan, and that alone, we've been unsafe since then. We are an embarrassment in the world stage, and we know also something else we haven't pointed out yet, that a year after our withdrawal, speaking of the Taliban, we left the Taliban vast quantities of military equipment. China and Russia are now cultivating ties with that country, according to the a new government report this week. And that means while the White House retreat has empowered Russia, even as Joe Biden steers billions of dollars to Ukraine against Vladimir Putin, he still remains in power. They're still uniting against us, and now they're using the Taliban to unite against us as well.
Yeah, and Jeffrey, China clearly has no fear of showing what they're capable of and making threats. And of course, now they're routinely sending jets and naval vessels and even missiles around the Taiwan Strait. Do you think the U.S. is strong enough to take them on, or have we just become too weak from the standpoint, even with our military?
Well, I am concerned about it. I think Jillian is 100% right here. Weakness tempts bad guys, and it happens all the time. On the other hand, strength makes them very cautious in what they do. And it's not necessarily one event that is related to another. It can be quite different events. In 1981, President Reagan was faced with U.S. air traffic controllers wanting to go on strike, which was illegal. He fired them. All of them. I think it was about 11,000 people. What we didn't realize at the time was that the message went to the Soviets that he means what he says, and he will do things that are not expected, and they needed to be very careful in dealing with him. The withdrawal, the hasty withdrawal from Afghanistan by correlation, sent a message here that the United States was weak, that this president was weak. And that is a real problem. It's tempting.
And Jeffrey, do you feel that since the disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan, that this President Biden, this administration continues to even, be viewed as even weaker? Because, I mean, that was about a year ago at this point, and it just seems, as we're seeing Russia ramp up, we're seeing Iran really have no regard for this country. The president's trip to Saudi Arabia didn't get anything for us, anything that he intended. Is this just something that we're seeing too much of too frequently?
Yes, and I'll tell you, it's complicated by the president's personal situation. I mean, by now, everybody around the world recognizes that he has some cognitive problems here. You add those two things together, that is very, very tempting for America's enemies in the world. They think they can take advantage of him. And, you have to be very concerned that they're right.
And speaking of Saudi Arabia, Jillian, meanwhile, China's president, Xi Jinping, expected to make a visit to Saudi Arabia this coming week for a meeting with Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. That's, of course, who our president met with not too long ago. And as we mentioned, President Biden really failed to accomplish nothing. How alarming is that now China is kind of following in President Biden's footsteps and trying to bolster this relationship with Saudi Arabia?
I mean, I'd say it's a show of force. And I just want to point out that Joe Biden didn't need to be there in the first place when he was going there to make deals to get oil. We know we have it right here. It's another misstep by Joe Biden, another side of us being weak, and another show of force by China, who's our greatest threat right now.
I also want to turn back now to the, I'll say, kind of topic of the week, of course, the fallout of the FBI's raid of Mar-a-Lago. Jeffrey, let's talk about this, because you wrote a piece for the American Spectator, and you argue that the lust for ultimate power was on full display in the Mar-a-Lago raid. Explain what you mean by that.
Well, I don't think there's any question, and Senator Grassley from Iowa has confirmed this, that they're getting whistleblowers out of the FBI who are telling them that the people at the very top of the organization have a very left-wing political bent and have been using the Bureau in that fashion. I'm certainly not the only one to suggest that when you invade the private home, the private residence of a former president of the United States, you have gone way, way, way beyond your authority and the sort of traditions of the Bureau. And that's because you've got people at the very top who simply don't like Donald Trump and think that they're, as the historian Victor Davis Hanson has said, they think they're morally superior to most Americans and morally superior to Donald Trump. So they're going to do what they want. That is a very serious problem.
Jillian, your take.
I mean, I think the Mar-a-Lago raid feels eerily similar to the Russia collusion, where the media, especially the left-leaning media, is trying to get their story in place before we ever have facts in place. And I just want to point out that it was just in June that members of the government and members of the National Archives came to Mar-a-Lago and went through documents with Donald Trump. Donald Trump went downstairs to say hello, let me know if you need anything, and we never heard a peep from them again until August. So Trump really was cooperative, and when they asked him to provide more security over these documents, he did do that. So this was really a surprise to do this raid, and it really makes no sense, and I'm excited to see, how Donald Trump fights back.
All right, Jeffrey, last word to you on this topic. Do you think the timing of this has to do with the midterms, but also really just to ensure that Donald Trump doesn't run again?
Yeah, and I think it's had exactly the opposite effect. People have really been offended by this, and they really see a dangerous situation here. And I think, if anything, it has increased the call for him to run, because it illustrates exactly what's wrong with the federal government, and only an outsider like Donald Trump can fix it. So I think if that's what their intention was, it has backfired big time.